Crashing the military in a military town isn't usually a smart idea, but it's even dumber if you're a public high school teacher, a city councilman, and the former mayor. Gregory Salcido is a teacher at El Rancho High School in Southern California, and he is facing death threats and calls to be fired after going on a vicious rant against the military in the classroom. He was surreptitiously recorded.
Think about the people who you know are over there. Your freaking stupid Uncle Louie or whatever. They're dumb shits. They're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low, not morally. You know, I'm not saying they make bad moral decisions, just they're not talented people. If you join the military, it's because you have no other options. Because you didn't take care of business academically, because your parents didn't love you enough to push you, and then you didn't love yourself enough to push yourself, which isn't even that hard. It's not even that hard. You just have to focus a little bit. You don't even have to work hard. You just have to focus. And you didn't do it. Don't you ever freaking bring the freaking military into this fashion. I don't understand why we let the freaking military guys come over here and recruit you at school. We don't let pimps come into school. All right, anyone interested in being a hoe?
LA Times reports he's had a history of incidents, shocking, including striking a student, reportedly making threats and other inappropriate comments, all of which have resulted in temporary suspensions. El Rancho Unified School District had this to say about the controversy. Our classrooms are not the appropriate place for one-sided discussions that undermine the values our families hold dear. We are investigating. We will find out exactly what happened and take all appropriate action to ensure that the values of our students and families are respected in our schools. Salcido has since been placed on leave and apparently will not be returning to the school. We talk all the time about not wanting our students to be afraid of offensive speech. One could certainly call this offensive. I would. But I don't actually have a problem with educators having strong feelings about our foreign policy and our military. Patriotism isn't mandatory in this country. That's what makes it great. What I do have a problem with is when educators spew total nonsense, uneducated opinions, solely meant to bully and intimidate students out of sharing their opposing views. Our servicemen and women are the lowest of the low, dumb, uneducated. Their parents didn't love them enough. No educator should infect young minds with this kind of ignorant bile. Talk about the lowest of the low. My next guest, Ben Shapiro, is no stranger to liberal academic bias and also offending the easily offended. He just came off a speech at UConn where the university prepped its students by offering counseling. Ben, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. We want students to confront controversial opinions, including that maybe the U.S. military is not above reproach, but should this count?
I don't think that this falls within the purview of frankly, the teacher's job description. Number one, there's a difference, I think, between a public high school classroom and a college's. Number two, I think that this was obviously designed to abuse one particular student, right? This student who this educator, supposed educator, was talking to was somebody who wanted to sign up for the military, and the teacher just decided to go off on that student because they disagreed with the student's choices. So it had very little to do with preaching about politics generally. It had very little to do about educating students as to the role of the U.S. military or even negativity about the U.S. military. It had much more to do with simply bashing one student who made a decision that the teacher didn't like, which looks more like bullying from the teacher to the student than from the administration to the teacher to me.
Yeah, it absolutely does. What different kind of light would you shed on this if had this been in a college classroom instead of a public high school?
I mean, I think it would probably be inappropriate in both, but in a college classroom, I think that there's an assumption that you're going to be experiencing differing viewpoints in a way that's not really true in high school classrooms. In high school classrooms, there's a typical idea that you are supposed to get a basic education that gets you through high school, which is why you get picked up by a truant officer if you don't actually go to high school. The same is not true for college, where you're opting into a situation where people can opt out of the class. You don't like a professor in a particular college, just don't take that particular class. The same does not hold true, obviously, in mandatory classes in high school. And so if you are forcing students to sit there and be lectured to by a teacher, then the teacher has a higher level of responsibility to fulfill their particular educational curriculum than they would if they were in a college.
Okay, let's turn for a minute to another sheltered liberal enclave, Hollywood. You and I were tweeting after the Grammys, which, yes, I know, took place in New York for the first time in 15 years, but that room was full of Hollywood celebrities. Here's what you tweeted about that bizarre Hillary Clinton cameo. Note to the left, it's difficult to whine about conservatives focusing on Hillary when you guys can't let her fade into the forests of upstate New York. Indeed, it feels like it's Hillary who won't go away, no?
Yeah, this is what's truly astonishing. I'm shocked, frankly, the Democrats want to keep bringing her back, other than they're just so stunned by the results of the 2016 election that they can't let her go. When Mitt Romney lost in 2012, Republicans never wanted to see Mitt Romney again. It's taken him it's taken him 6 years to get back into a place where people are thinking about him maybe running for the U.S. Senate. The same was true of John McCain. Typically in American politics, it's a pretty brutal blood sport, and when you lose, everybody says, go away and leave us alone. Hillary Clinton, you know, she's back every 5 seconds, and here she is reading Fire and Fury, in a book that, by the way, makes some pretty nasty allegations, the author of which made some nasty, unfounded allegations about Nikki Haley, and yet she's supposed to be the one standing up for women. There are about 1,000 things wrong with this routine from the Grammys.
and apropos of nothing, by the way. So I tweeted back that while you're right, we also have to call out the bad actors on our own side, and when you have people like Jeanine Pirro literally venturing into the forests of upstate New York to find Hillary Clinton and her dry cleaner, that only emboldens the left's argument, which is that we all have Clinton derangement syndrome and can't leave her alone. What's going on there?
I mean, the reactionary nature of politics is so extraordinary right now that you're exactly right. You see on the right people who won't let Hillary go because they have to use Hillary as a constant foil for Trump. No matter what Trump does, we have to talk about Hillary. And on the left, they can't let Hillary go because they can't believe Trump won. So we're still talking about Hillary a year and a half after she lost an election. It's just, can we move beyond this at some point? Like, wouldn't Democrats want to move beyond this at some point?
Or can we at least have an adult conversation about Hillary Clinton? I think there is an adult conversation to have. It does not involve tracking down her dry cleaner and asking her about pantsuits. So the Grammys ratings were down 24%. These award shows have gotten super political. Do you think that the producers of these things coming up, you know, to the Oscars have just said, screw it, we're just going to talk to our base? Or do you think that they should ease up on these political moments to try and win back fans like moviegoers and music lovers?
I mean, they should, but I think one of the big problems they have is that all of Hollywood has become such an echo chamber that only a small percentage of the population is even going to have seen any of the movies that are nominated for Oscars this year. I think only 2 of the top 10 movies that have been nominated broke $100 million at the box office. So the idea that you know they're suddenly going to be catering to a broad swath of the American public, I just don't think is true. Also, they don't see anything controversial. This is what's astonishing. I mean, I've lived in Hollywood my entire life, and it is true that out here, there is nothing controversial about anything that happened at the Grammys. If you said to them, that was really controversial Grammys, you guys did some pretty crazy stuff, they would say to you, what crazy
Which
stuff?
part?
No, that was all mainstream stuff. That's what we talk about at parties. What's the big deal? So if you're completely out of touch with the middle of the country, it's not a shock that you're not catering to them.
Yeah, but you'd think they understand ratings. You'd think that would get to them and get them thinking, wonder what we did there that's resulted in these ratings drops.
But they'll find another way to blame the public for that. In the same way that Hillary Clinton's campaign blames the public for not sufficiently appreciating Hillary, a lot of the people who produce things like the Oscars and the Grammys, they say, well, the ratings are really dropping because we're just not tolerant enough of female performers or black performers, or we're not tolerant enough of these
We're not smart
artsy
enough
movies.
to get it.
It's all about the evils of the American people, not about your inability to produce a show we actually would like to watch.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks.
Coming up on last night's show, I told you about a teacher, local councilman, and former mayor who went on an unhinged anti-military tirade in front of his high school class in a town south of Los Angeles with a large veteran population. Well, the fallout continues, unsurprisingly, with angry veterans crashing a school board meeting to protest Gregory Salcido's comments, trashing our brave men and women in uniform. Here's a reminder of his offensive comments.
Think about the people who you know are over there. Your freaking stupid Uncle Louie or whatever. They're Dumbshits. They're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low, not morally. You know, I'm not saying they make bad moral decisions. Just they're not talented people. If you join the military, it's because you have no other options. Because you didn't take care of business academically, because your parents didn't love you enough to push you, and then you didn't love yourself enough to push yourself.
This tirade has made it all the way to the White House. Chief of Staff John Kelly, a retired Marine general, weighed in.
Well, I think the guy ought to go to hell. I just hope he enjoys the liberties and the lifestyle that we have fought for.
Sean Parnell, Andy Levy are back to discuss. I got to be honest, this makes my blood boil. If I have one regret in life, and I am not prone to regret, it's that I didn't serve, and not for not trying. It's something I wanted to pursue. I can't believe someone would talk about our men and women in uniform this way. Sean, last night we did this segment. You were ready to just crawl out of your skin. I want to give you this opportunity to tell me and everyone else, as a veteran, what does this do to you?
Well, it makes my blood boil too, because not only what he said was of course reprehensible, but it was factually untrue. The people that raised their right hand to volunteer to serve this country during the longest period of war in our nation's history do so because they love their family, they love their friends, they love their country, and they would die for any one of those things at the drop of a hat if need be. And to use his platform as a high school teacher to then turn around and attack the people that provide him the very freedom to voice those opinions is the height of hypocrisy.
Yeah,
and not to mention that most of the officers in our military have degrees of higher education, master's degrees and PhDs.
Andy actually has more on that.
Yeah, I'll go further on that. I mean, this guy says, he says, oh, it's your freaking stupid Uncle Louie and dumb bleeps, whatever. Here's a Pew survey from 2015. More than 8 in 10 active duty officers have at least a bachelor's degree. 42% hold an advanced degree. 4 times as likely as an average adult age 18 to 44 to have completed a postgraduate degree. 92% of enlisted personnel have completed high school or some college. 60% of the general U.S. population in that age range is on that. So the military exceeds that. Then he says of the enlistees, he said another thing. He's like, oh, well, these enlistees say, oh, the military is going to pay for my education. And he said, you guys aren't students. You're stupid. You're never going to, the reason you're joining the military is because you're not a student. According to Military Times, in 2016, almost 800,000 students were using GI benefits to pay for schooling.
Yeah, I mean, that's how dumb this guy is.
Yes,
he doesn't realize, like, the GI Bill and all of these other reasons, some of the reasons why people join the military.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, basically, as an educator, he gets an F.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, like, I served in tens of thousands of people in this generation, in the post 9/11 era. We volunteered to serve because of what happened on September 11th.
Right.
We saw people falling from those buildings and dying on live TV. I was in college when it happened, and I left to try to serve this country. And I ended up serving this country during 485 days of combat. And this guy out in California or wherever the hell he is not going to tell me that my men were not talented, that my men weren't loved by their parents.
And Andy, I mean, I don't want to blow up your spot. You had a similar story of why you enlisted during the Iraq War.
Yeah, the first one.
The first one. I know you're old.
You're old.
One from last century.
But yeah, that's what a lot of these people do. Yeah. They react, with the utmost bravery. I want to put one final spin on this, and I don't know, maybe I'm going overboard with this, but when we're already having difficulty recruiting men and women to serve for lots of reasons, and we've had to sort of move the standards and move the recruitment, thresholds up. To talk like this to a room full of, like a target audience, really. I mean, all of these kids are almost of age to serve, and in a military town, I'm sure they've all thought about it. To talk like that is almost, to me, messing with our own national security. To try and talk these kids out of serving and to say that serving isn't a valuable part of society. I feel like it's beyond just some guy spouting off. I feel like it's an issue of national security.
Well, I think the great thing about this country is that our kids, for the most part, are raised to love it. I had dinner with a group of people from Australia last night. He said this men and women said that one thing that amazed them about America is how the people of this country, regardless of where they fall politically, love this country to the deepest core of their being. And to me, that is what makes America special. That's what makes every generation of American warrior special as well. And these kids, they're going to serve their country because they understand the importance.
Yeah, I don't think this buffoon is a threat to national security. I think he's just a dumb teacher.
He's just a loser.
Yeah.
All right, Sean, Andy, thanks for your service. And thanks for your service at this table.